You're listening to Lyfe and Shyt. I'm Daneyel Walker.
And I'm Tommy Walker.
Join us as we talk about our journey overcoming fears, boundaries, marriage, family, lifestyle, business, and whatever other shit you can think of.
We're individuals that came together to create one unit with one mind and one goal. What's up, baby?
Hey, baby, what's going on?
Another beautiful day in paradise.
No, that's right.
I got a little vacation vibes.
That's right. That's right.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good, too.
You look good.
Well, thank you.
That is, Mark, I told my wife just a little bit ago, I was like, we were sitting there having our meeting. I was like, damn, you are hot. I was like, we've been together for 18 years, and I just had to stop and just say, like, whoa.
Yeah, I love you. I love you. And thank you.
I'll tell you, she is a good-looking woman.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark.
Super excited. We have Mark Pattison on the show with us today.
In the house.
Mark, thank you for joining us all the way from Idaho. And for those that don't know, we're going to introduce Mark and everything that he's going on. But Mark is a very interesting. What's the Dos Equis commercial? They say
the most interesting man.
Interesting man. Mark Pattison is definitely one of those.
Yes.
You know, when you think about all the guests that we have, one of the most interesting. So thank you for joining us.
Definitely.
I'm gonna run it down real quick, Mark. I'm gonna summarize it, and then you could go into detail. Mark is an entrepreneur, former NFL wide receiver, philanthropist, has a podcast called Find Your Summit, serial entrepreneur, actually. I missed that part.
Mountaineer,
yeah. Dad, yeah. Right? You know, and so I think I hit all the topics. Is there
not all of them, man? Not all of them. When I climbed Mount Everest, the NFL did
that's right,
Emmy Award winner.
Yeah, this Emmy Award winning for Best Picture.
Oh, that's dope.
See that's and that's
not even
easy.
an actor.
That is not easy. That is beautiful. So, Mark, we're honored to have you on the show today, and we're going to talk about coaching and mentorship and everything. You know, Mark's going to give us some insights along these lines, and we're just going to have some fun.
Yes,
as usual.
And Mark, one of the things I know that automatically women always want to know is: are you single and ready to mingle, or are you married and locked down?
No, I'm not locked down. You know, this was plays into a little bit of my journey from going back 10 years ago. And I've been, I came out of the University of Washington, and I got married, and, I was in the NFL, and life happens. We had two beautiful daughters, and one thing led to another. And, after 30 years of being together, my now ex didn't want to be together anymore. And so out of that really is what, one of the words that you use is mountaineer. I asked myself, I have to have a massive goal to pull myself out of this, because I was so drowning in self-pity and what was I going to do and where was I going to turn and everything else. And so I ended up going home. I was living in Santa Monica at the time, went back to the house. I typed in and asked the question, has any NFL player ever climbed the 7 summits? And the 7 summits are the highest peaks on each continent around the world. Of course, there's 7 continents and 7 peaks. And so I went after that goal. It took me 10 years to accomplish. COVID got in the way. I got turned back on Denali first year in 2017. I ran up against minus 80-degree weather. I was up there in a tent, just in a snow blizzard. It was awful.
Wow.
I had to go back and do it again. But, anyways, at the end of that journey, I was able to accomplish that goal and stand on top of Mount Everest in 2021. And, through that 10-year saga, so to speak, I went through a lot of change, and I moved to the mountains here in Sun Valley, and, nature really helped me calm my mind and get me really clear on where I was going, forth. And actually, looking back on it, and I wouldn't say this, about every situation, but I think it was a blessing in my case, because out of that came the mountains. Out of that, I started raising money for others, in particular for my daughter who has epilepsy. I met all these amazing folks. I got to go on these retreats with the various people. The NFL films came up to me and wanted to film Mount Everest. And, then we turned that into showing a number of premieres around the country where all the admission went directly 100% to charity. And so, it's just kind of taking a negative and turning it into a tenfold positive. And that's where I sit today.
I love that.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And your hat says higher ground. It sounds like that's exactly where you went. It took you to a higher ground, but it sounds to me that you had to get grounded first. And that was that nature experience, right? And then you were able to get to higher ground. So I love that.
Yeah, I mean, Higher Ground is a nonprofit here in Sun Valley, Idaho, and it's really there to help those by doing, and so the money that is raised, it's to bring in a lot of military vets, people with head trauma and things like that, and rather than just feed them medicine and other things, which is all good. What we do is we actually bring them out into what we have to offer here. And during the winter, it's skiing, downhill skiing and cross country. And during the summer, it's fly fishing and river rafting. And all those things are kind of right at our fingertips here. And so it's showing these people that have been many of them damaged and, kind of put to the side by society that, you're still valued and you can still do it. And that, just the self-empowerment of people being able to actually, I can do this. And it's even though they're, some of the things they've gone through are way more intense from the things that I went through. It still is a situation where, we all have to deal with their own reality. And my reality was, how am I going to emerge from kind of this dark place and then go find the light? And I think I was able to do that through this journey on the mountains.
Love it. So it sounds like you've had a lot of different occupations during your career and your time. What would you say is your current occupation?
Well, I think one thing has led to another. They haven't just been all random, but I helped start this technology company 6 years ago. And then about 3 years ago, we took over Sports Illustrated. And so, I grew up, like a lot of people, with that magazine coming to my front door. At the time that we took over SI, it was upside down. I came in and I had a number of different things that I wanted to do, really to do opposite of everything that everybody else was doing. The newspapers that you saw blowing up, magazines blowing up in a negative way, not in a big way. And so we did those, we made those changes. It seems like it's been a long journey, even after 3.5 years. But, when I came in, Sports Illustrated was ranked number 17 in the rankings. ESPN's always been number 1, and now we sit number 2.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, we beat out Yahoo and CBS and some of those. So, really emerging into major media has been really fun, one. And then the other part of that is, of course, I'm a sports guy. So being involved in sports,
right.
I'm at the fingertips of, all the breaking news stories that are going on, all the trades, within the NBA, Major League Baseball, college, and the NFL, of course. So, and now we're starting to just break into F1. So it's fun to start to learn about Formula One racing and those things. But overall, it's just been, you want to be living your best life, as you progress through and as you get, kind of in the highlighted career, you don't want to go backwards. And I feel like I'm in a great space right now in terms of where things have evolved to. I'm very grateful for the opportunities I've had.
And, it sounds like everything that you've done has been a lot of fun and you've really enjoyed it. But what do you do for recreation?
Well, I climb every day, I mean, I just got off the Matterhorn. So I climbed the, the 7 summits. And then after that, I was in Ecuador and I climbed Cotopaxi in 2022. And then I did a big mountain in Jackson Hole. And then last year I was down in Chamonix, France, climbing the highest mountain in France called Mont Blanc. And then this year I did the Matterhorn, which is beyond terrifying if you ever take a look at the Matterhorn. But, to do that, you have to be prepared. Preparation meets opportunity. And that is, time and time again, that has played out for me. And so I'm super disciplined about waking up every single morning at exactly the same time. And, I'm out here in Sun Valley and, I'm literally my garage door opens at 6:15 and I'm out with a headlamp on and just me and the wilderness and the stars and the moon. And that's it,
Nice.
And nature. And I'm out for an hour doing my thing 7 days a week. And then I reset that again and go climb a mountain in the afternoon around 3 or 4. And, that has allowed me to keep in shape and keep my mind right and keep strong as I start to prep for the next mountain I'm going to have next year.
I love that. That's amazing. And now, I mean, it sounds like everything is leading into the next thing, because you've done so many things. It sounds like you've accomplished like lots of dreams, right? What would you say is your dreams now? Like, what would be your dream?
Well, I think I'm really excited about the future, and I don't think everything always has to be exactly planned out. I'm training for the Eiger, which is in Switzerland, which is actually even more terrifying than the Matterhorn, next year. And so I'll be hard at that, training from now till next summer. That's one. Number two is, my goal with Sports Illustrated is I want to be number one. When I came in, I said, when we were number 17, this is 3 years ago, and I said, I'm going to get us the top 10. And then we got there, and then I said, this next year's goal is going to be top 5. And they told me to shut up, and I'm setting the goals too high. I said, nope, that's what we're going to do. We hit number 5. In December of last year, we hit number 5 the last month. Then this year, I said, I want to be number 2, and we hit number 2. And so now my goal, and it's a steep hill that we still have to climb to catch ESPN, but it's possible and it's doable with the right kind of strategy. So again, it's another challenge, right?
Absolutely.
I'm also, I've done a handful of these a year, but I'm looking to take this part of my life to a different level, which is public speaking. I've got so many experiences in business and in my personal life and with climbing and my Emmy award winning and film and playing in the NFL and college, went to all these bowl games and, these famous players I was fortunate to play around. It was just, it's been insane. And each one of these things, there's been major life lessons for me, and it hasn't always been easy. I mean, I wasn't the guy, I always had to grind and grind. And I felt like by showing up every day has put me in these positions, where I sit today and not giving up and living off things I did 30 years ago.
Absolutely. You couldn't have put that in a better way. And that goes right into our introduction question, for our conversation today is, have you ever had a mentor, or, it doesn't necessarily have to be a mentor, because you kind of alluded to, your life was one way for 30 years and then it shattered and you had to pivot. So have you ever had a mentor who completely shattered your beliefs, forcing you to rebuild from the ground up? And then, and then what was that transformation like going through it?
Well, that's a big question, and it's a great question, and here's how I'm going to answer it. I think one of the biggest influences on my life was a coach from the University of Washington, which is where I went back in the day. His name was Don James. He turned out to be a Hall of Fame coach, and when I was there, we went to my first 2 years. We went to the Rose Bowl, then the Rose Bowl again, and then we went to a couple of Aloha Bowls, and then ended up my senior year in the Orange Bowl and beating Oklahoma and ending up number 2 in the country. And when I first got there, I was just and remember way back in the day, it wasn't like it was or is today, which is all these select teams and clubs, and they're working kids out in gyms, when they're in 6th grade, and weights, and everything is really set up and well organized. Back in the day, there was no weightlifting, and so at all. And so when I finally got to the University of Washington, I got there. And I was 181 pounds. I was 6'2". I could not bench my weight. And the University of Washington had been on for a couple of years, had been on a streak. They were definitely building and going in that direction. And they had some, 21, 22-year-old, eventually first-round draft pick, guns, confident, players. And I couldn't compete with those guys. And so what Don James taught me was this thing called the pyramid of success. There's another guy, John Wooden, who coached at UCLA, and he introduced this, really invented it. And what it is essentially is it's a pyramid, and there's 25 blocks in this, and it's really all about how you progress through things, through life, to get to your ultimate goal. And so for me, that was, getting bigger and getting stronger and getting faster and getting doing well in the classroom and understanding the play. So when I ran in, I wasn't running something different. It was running, what was called, it was, there was 25 things on there. There's a bunch of, learning how to catch the ball better and all these different things. And so, through that, many of the coaches that I had were mentors, but really the framework was this roadmap on how I was going to get to my final pinnacle, which was winning the national championship. We won their Pac-10, that's what it was back in the day, which ultimately led us to the Rose Bowl, which we then won. So we made that goal, but then we made the goal even higher, which was the national championship. And through that, and really on the very top rung, and this is the most important thing of your question, is this thing called competitive greatness. And this is what I always taught, is that it's not about, you have to become Michael Jordan for any of us. Maybe it's for you guys doing this podcast. But what it's all about is loving the process.
Absolutely.
Right? It's waking up every day with a passion and going after it and attacking and showing up. And that's what this taught me. And so finally, by me doing this, there was no certainty that I was ever going to play it down. But I knew it would ultimately, someday, it would put me in a position when I could take on those defensive backs and I could catch the ball, and do all these different things I ultimately did. I finally got my opportunity against Michigan and my junior year, and they put me in, and I ended up catching with a couple seconds to go the winning touchdown. We won the game, and I was on Sports Illustrated, and
nice.
My career took off. But that was like the icing on the cake. But the formation of that had to be made and molded by having this coach mentor me and showing me the way of how to achieve things in life, and that's what I needed.
That's beautiful. Now, me personally,
how would you answer that question?
Like I've played sports, but I've never got to pass the community level of playing sports, right? Mm-hmm. I went to high school, was supposed to play, football in high school, didn't get there. But then going into business, I had a desire to find a mentor that would coach me through business. And honestly, Mark, I found it difficult to find a mentor, difficult to find a coach that I didn't have to pay for, right? It's like, you have those coaches that naturally come into your life and kind of show you the way. But I never had the opportunity. And then when I did seek out different coaches, I was like, hey, can you mentor me? You're where I want to be in this industry. How can I get there? And they were like, are you serious? Like, you got it. Just go out there and do it. That was always the answer that I got. And so reverse, I became a mentor because I was like, I don't want anybody to say or feel in a position that there's nobody there to help them out or don't give them the game. What about you?
Yeah, that's not a great answer. I mean, your answer is a great answer, but how they used to answer you, is not a great answer. Just go figure it out. Yeah. And one of the things that I've learned from is success leaves clues. Success leaves clues. And so what I've always tried to do is surround myself with guys, and the number that I like to pick is 5. And 5 guys or girls that are smarter, that have had way more success, that I can go, that they're trusted, that I mean, there are so many people that are willing to help you, like if they, and they have to fall into this thing of they bring something to the table, they've been successful in whatever they've done, and now you're trying to learn and replicate whatever they have done, which may help you in whatever, you're trying to get after.
I agree, Mark. That's what I told Tommy too. I think that he has not asked anyone who's on that upper echelon that he needs to be on. The people that he's talking to are more on his level, and he needs to talk to someone that's just a bit above it so that they give him advice and really draw him in. As far as me and my mentors, I say I had some, first I said I didn't have any mentors at all, but then I was like, you know what, I had some trifling mentors growing up. And they taught me what not to do, and they taught me in what not to do and what to do, and how to be better, and I appreciate them as well. It's like the uncle that was always there, but he was always doing bad things, you know what I mean? But it just taught you, like, okay, that's how people are, one, you don't do stuff like that. And then I would say another thing is just find, like, in my life, I've had bosses and in just having coaches. I've had some really good coaches in volleyball, track, that kind of brought me in and taught me some real things, like just within the game. I'll never forget, I had a coach named Sarge, and I told you this before. We were playing, and it was volleyball. We were playing against these girls, big, tall girls, and they're spiking the ball in our face. And I'll never forget, we all kind of ran like, oh shit, the ball's gonna hit us in the face. And the next day, we literally he had us stand at the net, and he was just slamming the ball at us. Bow, bow. But from there, we were never afraid again. So that was like a huge lesson to just face all things. And I mean, even it was in the face.
No matter what. Yeah.
But to face it. So I think those were mentors that I didn't really know were mentors at the time. But as an adult, I have not had a mentor in my life. And it is something that I do seek.
Yeah. Well, for us, Mark, we're a part of Entrepreneur Organization now. And I seen that, that you actually did a talk for EO at one point, right? So
this summer. Yeah,
so we're part of the San Diego chapter here, and I would not call myself a mountaineer. You would never hear me claim it. But I did some rappelling this weekend. So this past weekend we was out in Utah, and I was with my forum, and it's 8 of us in the forum, and for those that don't know too much about the Entrepreneur Organization, it's a bunch of entrepreneurs that are in a particular chapter for whatever city, and then it breaks down to multiple forums. Mm-hmm. And in that forum, it's basically your mastermind. We've talked about this before. And and to me, I look at, even though they're my peers, they're also my mentors. Like, I look up to them, they look to me for advice. So it's a great relationship. And I love EO, and I love my forum. Shout out to The Rock. And we had a great experience this weekend, or the last 5 days. I just got back last night, and we did some whitewater rafting. We did some rappelling. 120 feet was my highest, so nothing like Mount Everest, not even close.
No, that's a good pop, 120 feet.
And it was one of those things to what you were saying about mindset and getting prepared and the journey. I'm prior military. Like, I spent 10 years in the Navy. So, my journey in being physically ready and mindset ready is every day, no matter what, because I never know what is going to be ahead of me. And I felt like going through what I went through this weekend, not from just the physical component, but also the intellectual, the mental component, helped me in that. And then when we had our little gauntlet where, my peers were basically coaching me through everything that I was bringing up.
Well, you say coaching, but that's one of the things that I love about EO and also my forum is, like, they call us on our shit. You know what I mean? So it's coaching, but it's like, oh, I feel this way. And they're like, nah, like, that's bullshit. Like, you should do it. So they call us out a lot.
Yeah. And Mark, I'm sure you had a coach out there that wasn't as kind, right? It's like coaching and mentor, like, you didn't have coaches that were very kind. How do you see yourself today as a coach, or are you mentoring? Do you have a mentoree that, one-on-one?
Well, let me unpack a couple things there. So, number one, I'm coming to San Diego in November, and you should have me come in and do EO San Diego.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I will put that out to the learning chair.
And they will be watching.
Yeah.
I had this guy when the lady came in. So this lady walks in, the first person in this room, and I'm in there waiting for the group. And she goes, "This is a tough crowd," and they've like eaten up a number of the speakers. That's what she told me the first thing.
She wasn't lying.
She goes, "Okay." So we go in there, and I did some different things, and these guys were crying in this room.
Oh wow!
And it was insane to see that, just because I don't, I think because of my background. They knew they couldn't just come in and roll over me. And I think at the end of the day, we all learn from each other. And when you, like, some of the experience you're talking about, rappelling and doing some of these other things, one of the things that's so great about it is it not just about that, it can be anything. But when you're around other people and doing things that you're uncomfortable doing, it expands your mind saying, if I can do this, maybe I can actually go do that.
Absolutely.
That's so true.
Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the thing. The biggest thing when I got down to the Raiders, I grew up in Seattle and played for the Washington Huskies, and I hadn't ever really thought big. I mean, big and like, hey, let's win the national championship. But I'm talking about business big and all that other stuff big, until I got to the Raiders and Howie Long and Lester Hayes and Ferraris and all this craziness that was surrounded the whole Al Davis thing at those times. It made me to start to rethink, like, maybe my life is a little too small and I need to start thinking bigger, seeing all these, actors come by and all this other stuff that world was for me way back when.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I don't hike. I haven't done any of the climbing, but I did do scuba diving, and I went 90 feet underwater. And I told Tommy, I was like, that's kind of like the same experience, because once I got down there and I saw that I was 90 feet underwater and I looked up, I was like, oh my goodness, I am very, very far under the water.
Yeah. I could never do that. I mean, it's just, but you're conquering your fear, going down and doing something brave like that. It's good for you.
Yes, and I feel like climbing is something that scares the crap out of me. So I'm not sure if I would be. I mean, I'd go so far, but 120 feet up, it seems quite intimidating. But going down was just the same. So it is conquering a fear. And it is a mindset that you have to have, even before you get there, right? Kind of like, okay, I'm doing this and it's going to happen.
Yeah. No, but it's so freeing when you actually accomplish that thing that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so it's like we're talking about a lot of extreme things too. Like, I mean, the 7 summits, like you say hiking the 7 summits, all right, so trekking, right? Mm-hmm. So when you think of hiking, you think of trekking. Go on a trek. Yeah, we're going to trek, and when you're talking about Mount Everest and going up 8,000, like that's not an easy thing that you do, right?
And Mark, you said you were training for it. Like, what are you doing?
So who's your coach? Like, who, especially going through that time, like, so 8,000 square feet. Like, I got buddies that can't do 100 feet. So to go 8,000 feet, what was coaching like? What was mentoring?
Well, Mount Everest is 30,000 feet. It's 29,032 feet.
Oh, okay.
It's way up in the sky. And, I think like anything you do, like you don't go from little league to the NFL in one jump. Just like, you guys, sounds like you're successful business people and you're doing your thing. And you didn't go from kindergarten to what you're doing today, right?
Facts.
And so, I grew up doing a lot of those little hikes, treks, you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And then when I decided to get into this journey, there was kind of a evolution of how this was all going to play based on difficulty. And every year I kept upping the game, and I go and train on certain mountains. And I watched a lot of videos. So when I finally got to Mount Everest, that's a 2-month thing. Think about that, living at 17,500 feet for 2 months. How do you train for that?
Right.
And going through the Kumba ice fall, which is a 2,000 straight up, they got these big ice blocks that fall down, crash every day. And people are killed in there, stepping over dead bodies. How do you prepare for that? Wearing an oxygen mask, going up from, to the top from Camp 4 at 26.5 up to 29. How do you prepare for that? And, some of that you do and some of it you don't, but spending 2 months, sleeping on ice and rock and shitty food and everything like that, it's a mindset then, once you get to a certain point, like, this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to figure it out. And you're going to go and you're going to study as much as you can with old videos and talk to other people and mountaineers and mentors. You guys keep talking about to help, like, what I might be in for. And that's what helped me.
Wow. Oof. When you hear about people like Aaron Ralston, when he had to cut his arm off back in 2003 when he was in Utah hiking.
Yeah.
You hear people like that. Like, does stuff like that, like, do you think about stuff like that in your journey, or you just... I mean, because everything, there's always good and bad things. And then you think about the extreme things. And because you just did it. So did you go back and say, all right, I know someone who was hiking and had a bad, accident and had to do some extreme things. And I say this because, we just had a talk with, we have different kind of people come and talk at EO. And it's like, do you think about those things, when you're going through this? Or are you talking to your coach or mentor saying, I don't want to end up like this guy?
Well, I think, again, that word I used before is preparation meets opportunity. And there's nobody more prepared when I go do these things than me. I believe that. And, I also have this thing, how athletes are this invincibility thing, right? Where like when you're playing ball back in high school or JC or whatever, you're like,
never me.
You just know people are going to get hurt or concussed or whatever, but you never think it's going to be you because you're just not going to, that's not going to happen. And that it was kind of my attitude, going up there. I knew I'd be stepping over dead bodies and sleeping next to dead bodies. And that was just a choice that I had to make going into it, that I was not going to let that rock my game or take me off what my ultimate goal is going to be. And many of those people that were in that position should have never even been in that position. In other words, they were in way over their head. This last weekend I was in LA, not too far away from you, and I was up at Laird Hamilton's house. And this is a great example. So he's a big wave surfer, right? And he was the first guy to ever surf a 100-foot wave. Think about that.
Wow. Yeah.
And so a lot of what we were doing as pool up there, working with these weights, is doing all this underwater breathing techniques. And so this would be a great example of, like, if I ever tried to take on a 30-foot wave, let alone a 100-foot wave, I would die because I'm not prepared. I haven't spent my whole life doing this. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to hold my breath underwater, right? When the wave is pushing you down, I don't know how to get into the pipe and all that stuff that those guys can do. That's their expertise. I can also tell you that Laird Hamilton, is phenomenal as the guy is and the big brand he is, has no clue how to climb. That's not
That's very true.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're accomplished in different ways, but you also got to know, like, what your sweet spot is. And for me, like, going down, you're talking about that scuba diving, going down 90 feet, like, my ears, I can only go like 10 feet down and then they don't pop. I don't know. They just, so whatever. I'm just trying to make the point that, you better make sure you know what you're doing, especially when you're doing, at the highest level, whether it's the NFL, climbing mountains, surfing waves, whatever. You got to know what you're doing to put yourself in that position where you're like, okay, I got this.
I love that. So let me ask you guys, do you guys think that leaders are born or made?
Both.
And then is it if they're made, or either way, does coaching or mentoring help to kind of like guide them through the way?
Mark, I'm gonna say leaders are both born and made, and definitely coaching, because I kind of hang my hat on, I read John Maxwell books, and the different stages of leadership, and level 4 and 5 stage of leadership is creating other leaders. So that's kind of where I am, is creating other leaders, and I enjoy that. So I feel if I see any potential opportunities of leadership in you, and you sign up and say, yes, I'm down, teach me, and you become an open book, 1,000%. If you wasn't born, or you didn't feel like you were born a leader, you could definitely become a leader.
You could teach them, coach them.
I could coach them to that.
What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I like your answer a lot. It's interesting. I had the good fortune of spending a lot of time with Howard Schultz, who is the guy who started Starbucks. Yeah. And in a prior life, I spent a lot of time. I did a lot of business with those guys. Then I ended up playing basketball with them, when I was up in Seattle and all that kind of stuff. And I would say to your point right now, he was more of a natural born leader because he saw an opportunity and then he wanted to exploit it. And he didn't really have any background to do any of this stuff other than a dream, right? So there was a great example. And most entrepreneurs can't go through all the different cycles, start, garage band type idea, and then take that to worldwide, publicly traded major brand. Like, they don't have the skills to go all the way through. And that's why a lot of times the founder is ousted and they bring in, somebody much more experienced to take it
to the next level.
So that would be an example of a natural born, to your point. And then I think where I fall in, I'm also answering another question you had earlier, which I didn't answer, which is about the mentorship part of it. And I think I've learned as I've gone, based on the influences I've had from these amazing coaches and then business people, in various organizations that I've been able to learn after. Mentorship, when I came together with Sports Illustrated a couple of years ago, it was a opportunity for me, which I wanted to do, is start a new vertical off the SI domain and just really simplify that I wanted to start a bunch of team sites. Like, I have a guy that covers the LA Chargers and the Padres and somebody that's actually in. And so what that all meant is that I had to go out, and I now have 150 reporters in each one of these markets, and I've taught them how to create content and how to publish in a way that can be very profitable for them. And so, by what I've learned, I was able to push that down, teach them, and now that's become a very successful part of what we do at SI.
Oh, that's awesome, and it's great because I don't know if everybody caught it, but the one thing is, like, you're a part of Sports Illustrated today, and when you were in school, you were on a cover of Sports Illustrated with no desire to be a part of it. Like that, it wasn't.
Well, I wasn't on the cover, but I had a full layout page. Yeah. When we beat Michigan, it was like, here's something like, here's a story of a dream that came true, or something. There was a title, and then I was on both sides of it, catching this ball over this guy. So, it was great. I mean, I was just like, it was. One catching the ball and two being in the SI. It was amazing.
Yeah, and now like that's a full circle. Like and now with that, and you talked about the mentorship and pushing these people. How has that transferred over into the business world? Because we talked a lot about sports. Now into the business world, how what does coaching and mentorship look like? Do you have? And you mentioned Howard Schultz, which is we own a coffee shop, so we have a quote of what he said in our coffee shop, and he's also from New York. He grew up in housing projects in Brooklyn. So he's a man after my own heart. so I respect everything that he's done in the industry that I'm currently in. But in business, especially coming from the sports world, how have you pivoted? What kind of coaching and mentorship has taken you to the levels that you've seen? I mean, with all the success.
Well, again, I'll go down a little more granular detail. So when we took over Sports Illustrated, it was very clear that if we kept doing exactly what everybody else was doing, we would lose. We would sink this ship, and that's what the course that it was on. And so, I spent a lot of time studying Google and studying trends and what was going on in the way that we consume content. And I said, you know what, we're going to do everything opposite. That's exactly what we're going to do, is everything opposite from what everybody else is doing. And then we went to Google and we unlocked what creates sticky content within what people like to read. And so we did that, and there's a couple other things that are in there, but the bottom line is, we talked about going from number 17 to number 2. It didn't just happen through magic. It happened because of finding the right people to cover these different markets, and then teaching them how to write, not just go write whatever you want, write the way that we want you to write. That's going to be sticky with Google. That's going to blow up your site and make you a lot of money. And so, this is an ongoing for 3 years. I started it. I founded it. It's the fastest growing team site concept in the history of doing this kind of stuff. It's taken the company to heights they've never been at before. We generate millions and millions of dollars a month, doing this. It has been a home run, and it came from me looking at others, and really learning, and then taking that in, and then passing that knowledge, that domain knowledge, to all these different people that I brought in, and saying, follow me, do what I do, say what I say, or say what I do, and then go implement that on your particular site, the Cowboy site, the Bronco site, the Charger site.
That's very nice. We always end the podcast with a final thought, Mark. So I want you to start thinking about your final thought when we get there.
Okay.
But before we get there, we got to hear the name of the podcast, where you can find the podcast, anything else that you got going on. You have to drop your website, your social media handles,
everything.
all of those things. But before you do that, I really, because my son, our son, actually all of our kids play sports. So all of our kids play sports. Even the youngest is a cheerleader. But looking at these kids today and seeing where these kids are going and the different opportunities that these kids currently have that you didn't have when you were coming out of school. Like, these kids are already making $1 million contracts coming out of high school. what kind of tip would you give these kids today, you know, based off of where you came from, where you are today, and all the different businesses, and thinking about the obstacles that you ran into, the life, because it's one thing that we don't think about as, you know, spectators in sports. We don't understand all the journeys that you go through as an athlete.
And the change
and
that
it
happens,
changes,
right?
yeah. Like everything. Like if you think about athletes change all the time. You know, you're not always an athlete. You have to pivot somewhere. So what kind of tip would you give these kids today, transitioning from business or going from sports to business, or, you know, have that backup plan, whatever the case may be, whatever tip you want to give these kids today, knowing that you didn't have the same advantages that they have today and the same opportunities?
Well, you know, I mean, there's a lot there. And I think the biggest thing is I'd want to have parents like you two, right, that can help guide. And if I was making NIL money, that you're, you know, like Peyton Manning, it's not Peyton Manning, but one of the Manning kids, you know, plays for Texas. He's a freshman. He's signed like an $8 million deal. He's never taken a snap, right? Yeah, it's stupid. And money does not buy your happiness. It can get you in a little bit better place, but it's really about having purpose that gives you that fulfillment that we all want in life. You know, and a great example of that is the Johnny Manziel complete meltdown.
Yeah,
right.
True.
He was given all this money, and all he did is party. And he went through everything. And he's sitting there at the end of the candle when the wick has gone all the way down, just like, what's my purpose in life? And now trying to figure out what that is.
Yep.
It would have been a lot better if he would have, you know, was in a position where he had better mentorship around him, where he could have had solid parents like you guys say, put the money in the bank. You're only going to spend a little bit, and let's go work on what your career, because majority of a career, whether you play in the NFL or you don't, it doesn't matter. Majority of your life is going to be doing something else besides playing a sport. And that's just a small part of it. I just watched this great documentary. I encourage your listeners and you guys to watch on Netflix called Beckham, David Beckham.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yep. It's on my list. Yeah.
It's just the journal. I mean, he would be kind of like the Tom Brady. And, you know, the in terms of the career, you know, obviously he's playing soccer in England, but a guy who made $1 zillion. He married one of the Spice Girls. He had paparazzi following him everywhere. And the only thing he cared about was soccer. He had a passion for soccer. That's the only thing that he cared about. And he made $1 zillion. I think he's made $500 million. He doesn't care. And now he just retired. And what did he do? He went and he bought into the Miami MLS team, right? And then he moved there and they brought in Messi. And so the point is that he found a passion, he stayed in that passion, and he's created an opportunity for himself to stay in the game versus just riding off and playing golf every day and not really feeling a sense of purpose in your life.
Absolutely. That is great. That's a great tip.
Yeah, it is.
And I want to say thank you for saying you wish you had parents like us.
I know.
We got 4 kids and a granddaughter, and you know, we just love. We love our family, and we just out here hoping we're doing the best we can.
Yeah, we just wish
I'll tell you, they all better look like your wife.
Thank you for that, Mike.
And they do. They actually do.
So I have a quote from one of my favorite coaches. It's Tony Dungy. And secret to success is good leadership. But good leadership is all about making the lives of your team members and workers better.
That's what I'm talking about. That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Love Tony Dungy.
So, Mark, what is your social media handles, your website, and what podcast, the name of the podcast, and where can people find it?
Well, I'm going to give you those. I'm going to end it with my own quote. All right.
All right.
The name of the podcast is called Finding Your Summit. You can find it on Apple and Spotify and any place else that you might find your podcast. On Instagram, I'm at Mark Pattison NFL. My website is markpattisonnfl.com, and that pretty much does it. And the quote I'm going to end, I've been living with this one. If you really think about it, it says a lot, even though it's very simple, and that is this. It takes a little more to make a champion. And that difference has been the edge that I have found that's helped me get to wherever I am today.
1,000%. That's 1,000%.
Just a little more.
I love it. You know, and I'm in, you know, the realm of coaching and mentorship is not just about, others is really about continuous self-evolution. It's really, I always say this all the time, like anything I'm talking to you about, I'm talking to myself. And so I embrace the journey for teaching, and we learn and in guiding, and often it's led to our own truths. You know what I mean? And that's how I look at everything.
I love that. I say a good coach can change the game, but a great coach can change your life.
1,000%.
I love that.
That's Life and Shit. Mark, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Love you, baby.
Don't be a stranger.
Yeah. All right, man. I'm coming down to San Diego. Let's do it.
Absolutely. I love you, girl. Do us a favor. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. Leave a review. Let us know what your thoughts are. That's the only way that this show is going to be successful. And we appreciate you. Talk with you next time.